So there's this great following of iconic 1950s and 1960s cars rallies that are all over the world. You have the Colorado Grand, you have the Mille, you have the Mille US, you have all these different rallies. And really, I've always seen there's a gap of rallies for 80s and 90s cars. And I think one of the things that we always stress at Curated is like, you've got to drive your cars, enjoy your cars. And really, if you service your cars, they can be reliable, or, many cars can be. I always had this dream of hosting some sort of an 80s supercar rally. And 3 years ago, there was an incredible rally at Pebble Beach of all vintage Bentleys. And they were the blower Bentleys. And I remember seeing photos and video. And then right at the Quail, during Pebble Beach weekend, they all pulled in together. And I was there, and Nandina, our sales director, was basically telling me, oh, you've got to meet the guy that organized this. This is so incredible. And I said, man, it's fantastic. It really, had this grand presence. And, jokingly around, I said, man, we should do this with Countach's. Now, I love Countach's. They've got a terrible reputation, and they can be very temperamental. I mean, you have to stay after them. You have to keep them serviced. And, I'd say most of the cars that we've sold have been very reliable for people. There's an issue here or there, but they're all around decent, good cars. But most Countach's have never been serviced. They're sitting away for 10, 20 years, and they need X, Y, Z. But, we made this statement that we wanted to do this rally, and we started planning it. I believe it was right around the end of 2020. We started planning it for 2021. We were really excited because it was the 50th anniversary of the Lamborghini Countach. And I think for us, it was a way to sort of show people just that these cars can run, they can drive, you can use them. And I think as more people see cars usable, it attracts people to a brand or a model or make. And I find that exciting as well. So we got behind it. We start planning this event. We start producing this event. And the plan was to drive for 4 days, different roads throughout Northern California, and basically end up for Pebble Beach weekend to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the car. We immediately, out of the gate, had like 5 guys sign up, another 2 guys sign up. After planning for a year, we were a month away to the event, and we had over 20 cars registered, which was an insane feat. I mean, to get that many Countach's together is one thing, but then to get that many Countach's together of guys that want to drive them is massive. I'll never forget, I left my family home. I told my wife, this is not the rally for you. God only knows what can happen. And I'm on my flight, and I'm thinking, oh God, what did I just commit to? I'm moving my staff across country. I'm managing, over 20, vintage Italian supercars. Am I crazy? And I was like, if I told you the nerves, I haven't that much stress in a very long time. So we ended up arriving. We arrived at the Half Moon Bay, at the Ritz-Carlton Half Moon Bay in Northern Cal. It was just wild. I mean, to see one Countach and then another arrive. And then you go into the garage, and there's like 4 together. And then you walk to a different floor in this parking garage, and there's like 2. And then finally we got all the cars together. And you got guys from around the world. We're all standing there the first night of the event. We had this little cocktail party, and Valentino Balboni came in, the famous Lamborghini test driver. And we're all standing there on the Pacific Ocean, all the Countach's lined up. We had 2 Diablos there. One, because my personal Countach at the time wouldn't actually start, which was a little frustrating, but I ended up bringing my SE30. We had another gentleman that brought his Diablo GT. We had another gentleman that had not purchased a Countach yet. He had his Diablo Roadster. And we had another Countach owner that brought his LM002. So we had this incredible group of guys. All the cars are there. And I think the momentum and the excitement for the next day was just, you could feel it in the air. I don't think anyone had seen this many Countach's together in a very long time. Maybe in Japan, maybe for the Factory's 25th anniversary years ago, but this was almost world-breaking. So we all woke up the next morning. We're walking around to the cars, and one guy, his spark plugs are fouled. So I've got my team. We jump on the car, and we're taking out the plugs. We're trying to put some fresh fuel. We're putting new plugs. Boom, we start his car. Boom, right away. It's perfect. So we're like, okay, we got that solved. And I think we had done a really good job of thinking and planning. I had this idea in my head that if we had transporters follow us, if any cars broke down, the transporters could just load the cars and we'd have support vehicles that would pick up the drivers and to the next destination. But I didn't think it would work as perfect as it did, and I'll tell you why. So we all got started. We started with our first speech. Valentino jumped in the first car. It was a black 25th anniversary, and I think that was surreal for all these Countach owners, is to be led in a rally by Valentino, who probably at one point had driven every car there when they were new. We all started pulling out, and there was this moment. You hear all the cars. They're all rumbling. They're all revving, and they're all in a line, and everyone has their doors up. And I got goosebumps. I know, half the other attendees got goosebumps, and everyone's like, what is this? So we all take off, and we're driving basically now just down the coast, and we're, going through some of the best roads in the world. Remarkably, for the first hour, there was no incidents. There was no issues. We went about another 2 hours, and then we had our first issue. We had a red Countach. We don't know exactly what happened, but the car quit. There was a little bit of smoke. It wasn't a fire or anything, but there was smoke from somewhere. So we pulled that over. Boom, that went on the truck. Okay, so we keep driving, and we made it sort of, that full day. No issues. One of the LM02s that was on the rally, it started to overheat. I guess a coolant line blew, and the Diablo GT that was on the rally, which was a no mileage car, actually he lost his brake lines. The car had been sitting. He didn't do a brake flush. He probably should have been cautious about that, but that's okay. So that night, his tech starts working on, our tech start working on the car, and guess what? All the cars were ready, boom, for the next morning. So the next day, we do another full drive through Monterey. We go to Laguna Seca. We're all at the racetrack. We do a full day there. We're having a great time. And we basically got to do, during Monterey Historics, we got to do parade laps with the Countaches, which was completely insane. We had 3 more Countaches join us at that moment. What was wild is all the cars ran. They ran great. They ran cool up until that afternoon. The Monaco Grand Prix Countach had a small issue. It had a coolant leak. Boom, our guys got that fixed. And then one of the other Countaches started to have issues. And we realized quickly, our techs realized it was the ignition box. So we swapped the ignition box. We sort of patched it in a way. We put a good used one. We figured something out. We got him sort of on the road. But what was the most remarkable thing is to see how people reacted to the cars and the sense of, we built this like little family and everybody got along. We created this group chat with all the guys, and it's like just a love fest of everything Countach. And what I realized from that was that the reason that these guys were so passionate and the reason that these guys were having such a good time and you could just feel this great energy was this was everyone's dream. The Countach embodied something way more than a car. It was really, an embodiment of the American dream. It was like this object of aspiration that so many people dreamed about when they first saw a DuPont registry. They had a poster on their wall. And this rally sort of was a culmination of all those feelings. One guy that stood up and told us a story of, how he first saw one out front of a movie theater when he was a kid, and he told his dad he had to have one day. He basically started his company and built his company because of a Countach. This passionate group, that was the feeling all weekend. And I promised myself after that weekend of 4 days of no sleep, driving around in Countaches, going to the Quail, going on display at the Quail. We ended up there was a Countach class at the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance. And we were so busy, I promised myself I would never do that again. And then 8 months later, we decided we were going to plan another rally of 80s and 90s supercars. That took place in Asheville, North Carolina at Horseshoe Farms. And that rally, we were limited on the space of the hotel, but we had 18 vintage supercars from all over the country. 2 F50s, F40, XJR15, Countach, a few Diablos, a ton of 512 TRs. It was like the theme of the rally this year. And again, you see this next generation of collectors that want to enjoy these cars, that want to use these 80s and 90s cars. And it was just really special to be part of that. And for us to be part of the brand. It's funny, the Countach Rally, I hate to use the word lost money. We lost a lot of money on the event. We had to make an investment. But it was so important to our brand and so important to what we do, and to see that progression with collectors that, I think this is something that we'll continue to do and continue to do these 80s and 90s supercar rallies, because they really embody something that's very special about a generation and the future of collecting. And it's really, in some ways, it's almost impossible to lose money on these rallies, because the value and the value add, you've created this this sense of, one, it's a sense of support group. It's almost like a community you've built, and the experience for the customer to be able to, drive these cars on some of the best roads in the world that are supported. And, we're here to help. We have trucks if something goes wrong. That's priceless. And it builds a level of, excitement where, we had a great client, Fred from Modfine, who ended up buying a Murcielago SV after the rally because it was like, you're talking and you're excited and you're like, I got to get this or I got to get that. So it was really special for us to support that, and I think we'll do it forever.
You asked for it, and Auto Tempest now has an app. So head over to your app store now, download it to your phone, and leave them a great review. So now, whether you go to autotempest.com by clicking the link in the description below, or just open up your phone app, you'll be getting access to all the results from all the major listing sites in one place. That is why we love Auto Tempest so much. We appreciate their support of VINwiki over the years, of CarTrek, but most of all because it is exactly where I go every day to find my next car.